Hello and welcome to Sideways. You know, when we started this podcast, we thought it might last 2 or 3 weeks before we realised that nobody was listening and we gave the whole thing up. And here we are, nearly 180 episodes in, with a thriving audience for which we're forever grateful. In a way, you could say it was a good illustration of us underestimating our own ability to create something worthwhile. And that's what we're talking about this week. In addition to getting old, parking apps, novelty coffins, and doubtful flowers. Underestimating yourself.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Excellent. I'm not too loud. I know you whinge a little bit if it's not, the levels aren't correct.
I see you've got your microphone very much positioned right in front of your face today. As if you're like one of those nasal microphones, that they use for sporting commentary.
Well, I can sit up a little bit more proudly if that's...
Well, that means I can see you more easily, so that's not necessarily...
No, I'll go back to where I was.
Hiding behind the microphone.
You happy with that?
Yeah, it's perfect.
We can crack on then, shall we?
Yeah, why don't we?
Well, yeah. This is just a quick introduction, really, because this was an item that you recently added to the list.
Ah. Because we've got a shared list now, haven't we?
We use Google Docs, yes, which I'd never used before. So it was new to me, but I've got to say it's considerably easier than Dropbox, so it was a bit of a revelation to me. So thank you for that.
So I've introduced you to something useful.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
I don't know if that's happened very many times in our lives.
Oh, well, I'm sure it has. But new technology, sometimes it takes me a while to adapt. That's for sure.
You are a granddad.
Oh, well, exactly. I'm allowed to be, aren't I? I'm allowed to be a little bit sceptical about it.
Yeah. You're allowed to ask questions such as, so when someone tells you the name of a band, you're allowed to ask, as my father used to, is it him or them?
Is that one of the traits of getting old?
I think so, yeah. I don't know how he'd deal with gender politics, my dad. I think he'd have massively struggled with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of our parents and grandparents certainly would have had issues. Though there's a few parents and grandparents struggling with the car park yesterday. We were at the O2 in London, that's for sure.
Oh, what were you doing at the O2 in London?
Well, no, we just caught the train in from there because the trains were on strike yesterday.
Yeah. And
so I was going up to London with my cousin, two of my cousins and their partners and stuff too. It was one of my cousin's birthdays, so we was kicked around London for the day. But it was that same old thing. You go to a car park, you haven't got the correct app. You have to then download. So there's loads of people standing around bar where you pay. Most people couldn't get signals, and there was arguments amongst couples trying to sort it out, and it was mayhem. You long for the old days where you could just bowl up, park up, and put a few coins in the meter, and away you went.
Yeah, but that wasn't all plain sailing, was it? Because quite often you'd get there and you think, I haven't got any change for the parking.
Yeah, it would take a little bit of organising, but certainly nothing on the level of not being able to download apps and people that haven't even got smartphones having trouble. And then there was someone trying to ring, there's a number which you can ring, and they said it just keeps cutting off. But no, it's mayhem.
Well, I think if you don't have a smartphone, you shouldn't be allowed to park your car.
It's part of life now, isn't it? Having one of those on your hip at all times.
Yeah, I think I've got most of the parking apps.
I think I've got a couple. I collect them as I need them.
Yeah, I quite like Ringo because it always reminds me of Ringo's, the corn-based snack that I used to enjoy when we were kids. I think they had, if I'm right, cheese and onions, salt and vinegar, and I think there was a sort of roast chicken flavour as well. So
there's a nostalgia part of
that
app. Yeah, not Ringo Starr. Doesn't remind you of Ringo Starr.
It doesn't remind me. No, I've never thought of Ringo Starr when I've got the Ringo app out. No. But I do always think of a nice packet of cheese and onion Ringos.
We're drifting here slightly off of the Google Docs and
that's unusual.
In the shared list, because you did put you on the shared list. You put a link on there, which you sent me. You have a look at this, and it was about a guy who quit his job and started a new business venture just as COVID hit.
A woman, I think it was.
Was it a woman?
Yeah.
It was someone. I'm not sure what her gender was. but it was basically about underestimating ourselves when you sort of underestimate, or they were underestimating their ability to proceed with it and to achieve their goals at such a different...
Yes, because I think she started her business right at the beginning of lockdown.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right at the beginning of the first one.
Yeah.
And it sort of resonated because it's something we often discuss in groups where people are sort of underestimating their ability to deal with the rigors of recovery.
There we are.
Or the perceived rigors of recovery. So it did link in quite nicely. But before we start, one of the other ideas on the list for future episodes was dealing with the taboo of talking about death.
Right.
And it's one that's been on there for quite some time. I'm trying to sort of work it into a workable format. But it reminded me, when I came across this story this week, it sort of reminded me of that, because there's an Edinburgh-based funeral firm that now offers quirky coffin designs to make it more fun, they say. No, I'm not quite sure because that's a great strapline for it. But what they do, they offer coffins that are shaped like certain objects, or have designs on them to reflect the person's interests. Now, I looked through some of the ones that they've done. I don't know if you've seen any of these. I haven't
seen any of them.
No. Some of them you'd think, well, perhaps the design that's going on the coffin may well have led to that person being in the coffin in the first place. For example,
like a pint glass, for example.
That was one of them. One of them was a pint of Tennant's lager. Another one was a Bell's Scotch whiskey. So which must have meant that those. If someone has gone to the lengths of having that portrayed on their coffin, it must have been quite an integral part of that person's life.
Yeah.
But there was one that was also painted up and looked like a Greg's sausage roll.
All of those could have had a hand in death, couldn't they?
Exactly. We'll say early mortality for sure.
Yeah.
I could just see the pallbearers walking down the aisle carrying a large sausage roll.
Was it in a paper bag?
Sort of rustling about, yeah.
Lots of grease marks around it. So, the obvious question to ask you is, what shaped coffin would you be buried in if you used that particular?
That funeral director.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you might ask me that, and I was thinking about it. I was thinking perhaps my first thought was to be able to shape like a vodka bottle, as I'd spent so much of my life inside one anyway. It'd be a fitting end. But then I was thinking, no, that's a bit macabre.
I don't think you'd want to go in a vodka bottle, would you?
No, I wouldn't. Although I'd quite like to go. Do you remember when I used to do designs on people's leather jackets and denim jackets, which were replicas of album covers?
I do.
One of the favourite ones I used to do, I used to love because it used to come out looking really nice, was the front of the Motorhead album Overkill, where you had an exploding skull.
Yeah.
So that would be quite nice. I think that would look quite nice on a.
You'd like to go in a skull?
I'd like to go inside a skull, or have that design on the end, on the outside, or something West Ham, or something like that.
Yeah, a hammer.
A hammer, a shape of a hammer. Because I was thinking about
if you wanted something West Ham shaped, you'd just go in a representation of crushing disappointment.
Yeah, quite difficult to portray on the outside of a coffin, but yeah. But it would fit the occasion perhaps better.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking you could go with one shaped as in a guitar. That would.
I was thinking about a guitar. Yeah, I think probably guitar would be the obvious one for me. I could go in a loaf of bread, I suppose.
A sourdough bread, yeah. That'd look a nice shape.
I was just thinking, actually, when you were talking about that originally, I was thinking I can think of a lot of people I've met in my life who ought to go in a massive penis.
Yeah, we won't mention names, but I think we could all think of certain people. There was another one I saw. There was one shaped like a Dyson box. Which,
really?
Yeah, and it painted up like a Dyson. Yeah, apparently the person that ordered that one, or not the person themselves, but the family ordered that because the chap used to do a lot of. He used to mend vacuum cleaners.
Oh, right. Yeah. I thought you were going to say he used to do a lot of housework. I was going to say, crikey, you'd feel a bit miffed, wouldn't you, when you died and your family were all sitting around saying, right, what sort of shaped coffin should we have?
Yeah.
I know, he used to do a lot of housework. Let's get him a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, the carpets are looking a bit grubby since he's gone.
Yeah. I think that's the shape of coffins, the sort of thing you'd need to leave instructions for in your will, on your death plan.
Yeah, well, I was thinking I'd like to have, right, the coffin faces the congregation, you can just see a little bit near the feet, the bottom of the coffin near the feet. You could have a little message on there, couldn't you, saying something like, it's a bit cramped and dark in here, or something like that, just to raise the humour level.
Spirits.
Yeah, the spirits.
Yeah, spirits, no pun intended.
Literally.
But it's funny, that's reminded me of something. I saw a video on social media this week where someone had essentially done just that, but gone a step further, where at his interment, as he was being buried, he'd recorded a message before his death where he was saying, it's really dark in here, let me out. Because he thought it would give all of his family and the mourners a bit of a chuckle. And indeed they were chuckling in the video, but I presume they must have known it was happening. Otherwise, that would have been that would be a bit scary. An unwelcome shock, wouldn't it?
Anyway, there was lots of others on there of different shapes and different designs.
I wonder if there's anything that they would refuse to do.
I'd imagine so. Yeah. We'll leave that there for people's imagination.
Let's leave that hanging, shall we?
I think we probably need to move on to the subject. I think we've already sort of the episode I previously talked about was about the breaking the taboo of death, and we've already started that, haven't we?
We've probably broken the taboo there.
Well, I think we started it already, so that'll lead into when we do that episode. We've softened people up. The underbelly's been softened over that, hasn't it?
We've softened the underbelly of death.
Yes, we have.
That's quite a claim, isn't it?
It's really.
That's quite a lofty claim.
But what I want, it leads on a little bit on that, because we're looking at people underestimating themselves.
Yeah.
And it covers really their own worth or their own abilities, and we sort of overestimated our ability then, didn't we?
We do all the time, don't we? Every week.
So we look at the other end of the scale where we're underestimating themselves. I'm sure we've all done that. I know I have on many occasions.
Yeah.
And it sort of prevents you. I know, looking back, it prevented me from sort of progressing to the 20 goals I had or purposes in life, really. And when I was doing the research, there's the main areas it comes from, really, is the underestimation tends to come from low self-esteem, low confidence and low self-assurance and so on. There's other areas. But first of all, I wanted to look at briefly the signs that we're underestimating ourselves, which I thought was quite interesting, because when I was doing the research, it was quite bitty this week to try and get bits of information from different places. But there's a few pointers. And the first one, which really does come up a lot in recovery, is when we reject compliments. And the reason it comes up a lot in recovery is because we felt so crap about ourselves for so long and been down on ourselves for such a long time that when we come into recovery, it happens with almost everyone. And people start to say, "Oh, you look better." Things are starting to look, and you really don't like it, because your first impulse there is to say, "Oh, did I look shit before?" Which you did, but you don't want to really think about that. So we underestimate that a lot, our own worth at that point, really.
Yeah, I can understand it happening a lot in recovery. Obviously it isn't the preserve of people in recovery. Lots of people find that difficult.
Yeah,
and it's kind of connected to that old adage: it's impossible to love someone who doesn't love themselves.
Yes.
So when you reject a compliment, it's because you can't see that in yourself. So if someone says to you, "Oh, I'm really impressed by that. That's really good," or "Oh, you're such a good friend," or whatever it is, because you don't see yourself in that way, you push it away. But it's worth remembering. I mean, apart from the fact it's doing you damage when you're doing that, it's also denying the person who's paying you the compliment of the joy of being able to pay the compliment. So if you say to someone, "I really appreciate you doing that. That's so kind of you. You're such a good friend," and it was nothing, then you're demeaning the joy that someone else gets in telling you how much they value you. It is hard if you're very practiced at pushing away compliments, but the easiest thing to do to change that is just to try and force yourself to say, "Thank you, I appreciate that."
Yeah.
It's, it might feel really awkward at first, but if you start to let those compliments in, that's one of the ways in which you can kind of start to change your negative view of yourself.
Yeah, it refers back. You're right, and it refers back to the receiving a physical gift. I mean, in this case, a compliment is just that, isn't it? It's an emotional gift, if anything.
Yeah.
Physical gifts we've talked about before. Sometimes that can be awkward to receive.
In a way, that's another form of underestimating yourself.
Yeah, it is,
because
isn't it?
If you find it difficult to receive a gift, there's something in there that says I'm not really worthy of having it. Which is an underestimation of yourself.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it was last week we talked about that, in fact, wasn't it? But another point was when you constantly refer to the opinions of others. I think we probably all come across people, haven't? I've probably done it myself, who says, well, my husband or my wife or my friend says such and such when you're presenting an opinion to someone. So you're almost deferring it to a third party because perhaps you underestimate your own ability to say those things.
Or you underestimate your own value.
Yeah. You're giving agency to someone else rather than really taking that agency on yourself, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you think that indicates a lack of security? Or is it just a lack of your own value?
Well, I think that refers back to whenever it was we were speaking about last week or the week before.
Yeah.
That's a struggle with a sense of self, sense of identity.
Yeah.
If you always have to tie your opinions to someone else, I'm telling you this because so-and-so said it. It does say something about your own confidence in your own perspective, which again is a form of underestimating yourself.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And another one that leads on from that is that sometimes you'll support your own opinions with other people's opinions. For example, you might say, well, if you don't believe me, go and ask so-and-so. Or isn't that right, Norman? Or whoever's there's going to back you
interesting. Up. Norman Sales.
I didn't have a name written down there. I just it was the first one that came to mind.
Is that the first one that came into your head?
Yeah. That's
quite unusual, isn't it?
Well, I didn't want it to be specific to anyone particular. I think it was going through my mind that would potentially be listening to this.
Yeah, there won't be. I don't reckon there are many Normans that listen to us.
No, if there is, we'd like to hear from them.
We would, yeah. I should think you're in a minority, very much so. Yeah.
So the next point about underestimating your own importance really was when you avoid thinking of yourself first. So you're relegating yourself down the list, aren't you? You're underestimating your own worth because you put yourself well behind everyone else.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot this week because my newsletter this week is all about the difficulty of self-promotion.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of what you're talking about there. You know, I think if you struggle with self-promotion, it's quite often because there's something in you that says, well, either what I'm doing or what I'm promoting here is not special, or if I am a bit overblown in my own ability or my own worth, it's arrogant. And I think it's important to recognize that self-promotion in all its forms is not arrogance. It's the only way that you can really take up your rightful space in the world.
Yeah.
Because, other people won't constantly be your supporters and promoters. Sometimes you have to say, you do have to put yourself forward. And I think if you think about self-promotion in the context of recovery, it's absolutely vital. You have to believe that you have the qualities and the strengths to be able to, walk that path and sustain it. And nobody else's support for you is ever going to replace the support you have and the belief you have in yourself.
Absolutely right. No, I agree there. But we've probably all heard people say, perhaps jokingly, but there may be a hint of truth hidden behind the statement. People say, "Oh, I know where I am in the pecking order at home. I'm below my wife, and I'm below the kids, and I'm below the dog, and below the cats, and I'm below the goldfish." And then there I stand. And you wonder if that is how they really feel, or if they're making a joke of it.
Yeah, and the other thing that it makes me wonder if I hear someone say that is, well, to what extent is that because you've put yourself there?
Yeah, true. Yeah,
sometimes people will deliberately martyr themselves because they feel less worthy. I mean, it's fair enough to be below the dogs. I don't have a problem with that.
You put everyone there, don't
below
you?
my dogs. But if you always, if you feel you're at the bottom of the pile, which is obviously a place from which you will underestimate yourself, then a lot of the time you'll be putting yourself there.
Yeah,
it won't be. It won't be because other people are pushing you down. I mean, obviously, sometimes it will, but sometimes people talk about that almost proudly.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, as in a jocular fashion.
Yeah, that's not a good place to be, is it?
It's not really.
Should always be below the goldfish.
So, do you think it's when we think other people see us negatively as well? That can grind away at us, can't it?
Sure.
If our perception of the people around us, we think, oh, they see me as negative. There's negativity about me.
Well, I think most of the time that will come first from you.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a kind of it'll be a self-perception that is then reinforced by what you see in other people. If you think of yourself as poor at something, like me and DIY, the way you'll reinforce that is by looking for all the evidence that supports it, or thinking about any criticism you've had regarding it. So it becomes self-perpetuating. It starts with you, and then you only notice the other people that agree with your own negative view of your own capabilities.
And the last one on that list was that you don't think you're unique.
Well, I think the thing about being unique, certainly the thing that I've found in my professional life, is that sometimes people don't believe there is value in being unique.
Okay.
So people might accept that they are unique. Most people will see that that is true. But if people underestimate themselves, they probably won't see that as necessarily important.
So it is a good point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the other ways in which you see underestimation of yourself is when you avoid stuff. Avoidance is an indication of underestimation. So if you avoid doing things or putting yourself in positions that you think you can't handle, that's an indication of you underestimating yourself, but looking at the wrong part of the equation, because instead of avoiding stuff, you're better off to put yourself in a position where you are exposed to it, because then you start to learn that you can cope with things that you didn't think you could cope with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that will definitely be a factor in recovery. You know, a lot of people will not start in recovery because they think, oh, I won't be able to do it.
That is a massive hurdle, massive
So
stuff.
how about starting it and seeing?
And seeing, Because
you're not going to be worse off, are you?
No, you're not. It just goes back to that fear factor again as well.
If you really want to do it, then you might well surprise yourself.
Yeah.
Because we're capable of lots of things that we don't think we're capable of, and we don't really know what they are until we expose ourselves to them.
No, absolutely right. And I think, again, that's come across in quite a few episodes that we've done in the past, isn't it? It's, again, one of the common themes. Yeah. But those are the sort of the signs, potential signs that we're underestimating ourselves. And the next few points really is looking at why we underestimate ourselves. We've looked at the signs, but what we've been talking about here, it sort of blends into this really, because the first one was being afraid of criticism, which that's, we underestimate our abilities to do stuff, and you illustrated it perfectly there, talking about going to recovery.
Yeah.
And when we compare ourselves with others, like on social media, and we've talked about comparative self-esteem in the past, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
But that can seriously lead us to underestimating ourselves, can't it?
Yeah, social media is a great place to add fuel to the fire of self-underestimation.
It is. Make yourself, if you want to feel really poorly about yourself, underestimate yourself, your own worth and everything about you, flick through social media on a regular basis. Yeah,
because you'll always find someone, it's not really restricted just to social media, but if you are determined to find someone who you can see as better than you, you'll always be able to do it.
It reminds me of a little quote from Zen Shin, and I've got to remember it correctly here, but a flower does not think of competing with a flower next to it, it just blooms.
Exactly.
That's.
Did that come off the top of your head?
Yeah, well, it was one that I'd written down a while ago, but I haven't, for some reason, it's not on my notes. So I'm hoping that I've got it about right.
Well, I'm sure the gist of it is right.
I think so.
Even if you haven't got it verbatim.
Spot on. I'm underestimating my ability to remember quotes, aren't I?
You are. Yeah. Well, so you're underestimating the value of you just pointing that out, because even if it isn't a quote, it's a truth.
It's a truth, yeah. It is, yeah.
Well, as far as we know, I don't think flowers look at the flower next to them and think, bloody hell, you're a bit tasty.
I'm not bothering to bloom this year, thank you very much.
Exactly.
Perhaps I gave agency to a third party, though. I should have just said it was my quote, couldn't I?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
I should have owned it.
You were trying to validate it by attributing it to some sort of Zen master.
One I found that I related to was also is sometimes it's easier to say, I can't do it. It stops you having to think about it any further, and that's it. You can just leave it there, can't you?
Yeah, I mean that was what I was referring to before. If you say I can't do it, then you relieve yourself of the challenge, but you don't learn anything about yourself either, do you?
No, you don't. You don't. And also leading on to that is when you magnify your flaws and focus on your perceived inabilities or incapabilities.
Yeah, which is the thing about comparing yourself with other people and
It
seeing that
is.
other people do stuff better than you do, or,
Yeah.
being myopic in your ability to see things that prove your own negative opinion of yourself. Yeah.
It is. But if we think negatively about what other people think of us, going back to that point, really, if other people underestimate us, do you think we can fall into that trap of, if other people underestimate me, then I probably should be underestimating myself? I'll fall into that category that they've put me.
Well, it becomes a bigger struggle the less you believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a strong sense of belief in yourself, then other people's opinions of what you can and can't do are obviously going to take on more heft, aren't they?
Yes.
Whereas if you have a strong belief in your abilities, you might listen to what other people say in terms of, using it as a bellwether, but it won't be the final determining factor, because in the end you'll say to yourself, well, it's good to have those other opinions, but actually I believe that I am okay, I'm capable of doing this, or I am all right in this aspect of my life, and you'll be guided by that. That's what we're really talking about, having a stronger sense of yourself that comes from within, than a sense of yourself that is coming from without.
Yeah. Well, that's about it on that. Apart from, there's just a little quote I wanted to see if you wanted to add anything into that. If there was any sort of tips or anything about providing a way forward where you can stop underestimating yourself. But I
have got a couple.
You have?
I have.
Okay. Well,
if you like me to give them to you now,
I do.
Your quote.
Well, I've got a sort of a quote just to round things up, but I just wondered if there's something you could add there.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts about things you can do in order to stop underestimating yourself or help yourself improve. And the first one, which is really important for recovery, is to have people around you whom can model for you a more healthy attitude to yourself.
All right. Yeah.
So if you're new in recovery and you're in peer support, then you are surrounding yourself with people who are gradually building up their belief about themselves. And so whether you're in recovery or you're in any other aspect of your life, if you underestimate your ability, hang around with positive people.
Yeah.
Stick around with people who believe in you, because that is going to rub off. And it's much more likely to have a positive impact on you than staying around with people who are quite happy to push you down in the place where you're already finding yourself. The second thing is, when people underestimate themselves, quite often they have very high expectation of themselves. And that's why they are able to keep telling themselves they're no good. Oh, I can't get there. So any sort of perfectionism. So one of the other ways you can deal with underestimating yourself is to lower your expectations a little bit and try and do whatever it is that you're doing consistently. So don't aim for perfection, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it be something emotional, you're a human, you're fallible, or whether it's something that is a specific objective or achievement. If you expect a little bit less from yourself, then it becomes easier to reach that level consistently, and consistency is the thing that will help you to start building your belief in yourself.
Yeah. Does that go back to sort of chunking down, if you like? If we're setting goals that are too big for ourselves, and then we will either give up and say, as we said before, I just can't do it, or the task looks too enormous, so you underestimate your ability to achieve.
Yeah.
But breaking that down, chunking it down into smaller portions, and then dealing with those individually, that's going to help, isn't it? And that will, in turn, will then build your self-esteem.
The other thing that I think is really important in building your belief in yourself, and this is another one that resonates with anybody involved in a peer support group, is to give back.
Okay, yes.
Because the more you give back, the more you realize you've got something to offer.
Yeah.
And the more you realize you have something to offer, the more likely you are to believe in your own ability and value. Since you've become involved in running groups for other recovering addicts, your belief in yourself in terms of what you can do to add value must have increased enormously, hasn't it?
Oh, it rocketed, and you're absolutely right. And that is a message that I do try and pass on. We do try and encourage people when they've got to a certain time under their belt of sobriety to perhaps look at running a group or co-facilitating. Because it does, for me, not only did it boost my self-esteem, but it gave me an extra motivation. It's an extra hurdle to stop me going backwards, if you like.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden I was then I think, I don't want to. I'd be horrible. I'm enjoying doing the facilitating. I'd hate to lose that now. It's just an extra little push towards long-term sobriety.
Just one other thought.
Okay.
Just one other thought. Think about the value of underestimating yourself. There isn't any. Who wins if you don't believe in yourself?
I'm just thinking that now. Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Right. We quite often think, well, if I underestimate myself, if I do better than I expect, then that'll be an upside. But it isn't. Because what happens when you underestimate yourself is that you, as I said before, you take up too little space in the world. You're too small and timid. You don't really achieve the things that you're capable of. So there's nobody wins when you underestimate yourself. The people around you don't, because they don't get the best of you, and you don't because you don't get the best of you. So stop being a prick. And
that's one of your own little
start
quotes.
To think a bit more positively about yourself. You're better than you think you are.
And I like the way you owned that particular phrase as well, didn't you? You didn't attribute that to anyone else.
Didn't attribute that to anyone else. That is all mine.
Until that, it perhaps lacks a little bit of depth. It goes straight to the point, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I'm going to attribute this last little quote to, if I may, is to someone called William J.H. Butker. I hope I pronounced that right. He's a sort of an American religious leader, the late 19th century. And he says, never mind what people think of you. They may overestimate or underestimate you. Until they discover your real worth, your success depends mainly upon what you think of yourself and whether you believe in yourself. You can succeed if nobody else believes it, but you will never succeed if you don't believe in yourself. I think that quite nicely sums up, I think, don't you?
Very good. Yeah. Yeah.
Never heard of him before, and I suspect I probably pronounced his surname wrongly, so I do apologise for any...
I won't worry, it's unlikely you're ever going to meet him.
Well, he died in 1962, so our lives only overlapped by 1 year. So.
Yeah. I won't worry. I'd put it to the back of your mind if I were.
I'm going to, but in case any of his descendants are listening and thinking that's not, you've done a severe injustice there.
That would be freaky if one of his descendants was listening, wouldn't it? Wrote in and told us.
So that sort of wraps up what I wanted to talk about this week, mate.
Good, because it's sunny outside and we don't want to waste too much time sitting in here talking.
No, we don't. We want to get out in nature. Well, what about your gratitude list then?
Right, my gratitude list this week, I've got No Mo May.
No Mo May. Did you got involved in that, did you?
I didn't, no.
All right, okay.
Let me explain.
Okay, I'm going to.
I don't do No Mo May in my own garden because it becomes really difficult to pick up the dog poo.
Ah, okay, yeah.
So you've got to keep the grass short for hygiene purposes.
Yes.
But in a lot of the places that I walk now, as we're coming into June, they do No Mo May.
Yeah.
And the fields are like vast wild meadows. And quite often what they do is they will then cut a path through these meadows. Yeah. And it is just stunning to walk through all these kind of places with all the beautiful wildflowers and the dogs steaming through them, hopping up and down. It really is a source of enormous joy. So I'm very grateful for No Mo May, even though I don't do it in my own garden.
Great, but it sounds like you're more grateful for the paths that are cut through them.
Fantastic.
Because, I was just thinking about that, and you're right. That is nice when you're walking through a path like that goes through. It's a bit like going through the middle of a cornfield where that's happened as well, or something like that.
I like that too, but I might put that on another gratitude list another week. If they don't cut paths in, I get back and my boots are covered in pollen. I'm not quite so keen on that. Neither are the bees, I suspect.
No, but now we've gone into June. No, then perhaps because I know they let it go. They wild it out where I live here. On part of the grass there, it's been wilded, and it's still there. But they have cut a lot around it, so it makes it a nice feature. Anyway, my gratitude list it was just. In one word, London was one that was aware, but I needed to go into that.
You're grateful for London,
yeah, which is a bit strange. Well, I was grateful really for the underground running yesterday because we had already booked to go to London to various places, and it was in doubt. Because we thought the trains are on strike, it's going to be difficult. But we drove to the O2 and then took the underground in for this. I was grateful that the underground was still running, so I was able to crack on and go to the Sky Garden and go to played some indoor mini golf at a place called Swingers.
Oh, yes, I've been to Swingers, yeah.
Yeah, which I thought
it's not the only time you've been involved with Swingers, is it?
There's a good story that I could lead on from there, but I'm going to have to save that for another time. And I'm not sure if I can...
Don't forget it then, will you?
Well, and I'm not sure it's appropriate, but we'll see. But, yes, I was grateful for that, even though the FA Cup final was on yesterday. So there's a lot of Mancunians running around. And Beyonce was in town as well. So it's...
Yeah, Lena went to see Beyonce last night.
Right. Okay, so there's quite a few... so it's quite busy. Having said that, in the city there where we went, the first part of it, it's pretty desolate, isn't it? I mean,
it is at the weekend.
At the weekend.
None of the offices are open, yeah.
No offices, and the shops that thrive when those offices are open are all shut as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's quite quiet around there. It's quite nice. So I was grateful for that.
It is nice. It's a nice city, isn't it, London? I think
Beautiful.
It's easy to take for granted living so close to somewhere so with such a reputation, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a short trip in, and it is lovely. Days of the year I want to go on to. Not a great deal here. There was National Hug Your Cat Day.
Oh, you can stick that where the sun don't shine.
You're not going to enjoy that one, are you? You're much more of a doggy man, aren't you?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be. Yeah, we want to be careful with phrases like that, throwing those around.
Have you ever had a cat?
Yes. Yeah, when we were growing up at home, we had a cat whose official name was Cleo.
Okay.
My dad called her Marshbanks.
Marshbanks?
Yeah, I don't know why.
No, that's a strange name for a cat, and there must be a reason, but we'll never know now, will we?
We won't ever know now.
No.
But I quite liked that cat, actually. I wasn't allergic to that cat, but I can be allergic to cat hair, so that's not great.
Yeah, I am now. And my eyes run sometimes with cat fur. It just depends upon the cat.
Yeah, I think it was probably my mum trying to kill me because when I was asthmatic when I was 7, they said I was allergic to cat hair and house dust, and so she got a cat and stopped cleaning.
It's a long, slow death, wasn't it?
And I still managed to survive, so I had the last laugh in the end.
Well, you did. You never underestimated your ability to survive, did you?
I didn't.
National Cheese Day was another one. Which
magnificent.
I know that. I remember you and I have had this conversation in the past about going vegan, and you said, but that one of the things that would stop you pursuing that particular lifestyle choice would be that you wouldn't be able to eat any more cheese.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody knows of a good vegan cheese, and I'd really be pleased to hear about it because I have never found one.
No, I've never tried one, I don't think. No, but I'd imagine it is quite difficult to replicate. The vast variety of cheeses that are available.
I'm bang up for National Cheese Day.
Yeah, you are.
And to be honest, I think National Cheese Day ought to be every day.
Yes, I think it would be nice, wouldn't it? Part of your everyday.
A different cheese every day, 365 days of the year.
Oh, there would
none of them
enough?
are goat's cheeses.
There would be enough, would there? Enough.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
The last one was National Cognac Day, which I'm not going to promote.
National Cognac Day? No, not interested in that at all.
No, good at all. We need to brush over that one.
I don't mind putting it on my Christmas pudding, unless, of course, you've come round for Christmas lunch, in which case you deprive us all of it.
I spoil the fun, don't I, for you?
I mean, it basically spoils Christmas.
It does, yeah. It ruins it, the whole thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
You might as well not have it. On this day in music, just a couple of items there, really. None of them are funny particularly, but I mean, it's just in 2015, in that year, in 2015, 1 in 7 of all albums sold worldwide were by British artists, which I thought quite a phenomenal thing. We're only a little island, aren't we?
Yeah.
Out of all the records sold worldwide.
I wonder why we like music so much.
Yeah. I know, it's bizarre, isn't it? Well, we create some good stuff. So
You're right, that isn't funny.
It's not funny. And again, but the next one, but I want you to guess the year on this because we made...
okay, great. Oh, yes, it's like a pop quiz.
It is a bit like a pop quiz.
Yeah, right then.
And it was a track that was at number 1.
Yeah.
And I want you to guess the year. But it's a track that you really, really hate, and we've mentioned it before. It was the year that Wet, Wet, Wet started a 15-week run. Love Is All Around.
Oh, God.
If it's that horrendous.
I hated that so much, that song.
What year do you reckon that was?
I'm going 1994.
Bang on. That was well done, you. It must be. And that I haven't told you that. That's
no, you haven't.
No,
you haven't. I don't know. Well, I mean, that was a guess. I didn't know it was 1994.
Well,
in fact, I'm a bit ashamed that I knew the year. I didn't really want to know anything about that hideous terrible song.
You underestimate your ability to remember tracks from certain years. But I think
if they did an anti-Desert Island Discs, choose the 10 discs you could not abide having and would cause you to drown yourself just off the coast.
Well, or like a bonfire, a bonfire album party.
Absolutely right up there. I can't think of anything that would come close to that song, to be honest. No, in fact, I'd probably, if I was on there, I'd probably choose it 10 times. I'm sure there are others, but
that takes some thought. But you're right.
Yeah, that'd be I think that's quite a good format. 10 songs I couldn't abide listening. 10 songs I wouldn't mind if I never heard again in my life.
Okay. Well,
think of any.
All right. We'll replace this on this day of music, or perhaps we'll save that to it because we're having a little break, aren't we, in the summer?
We're having a little break. We're having 2 months off.
We are. We're having July and August, aren't we?
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting. I mean, hopefully my next grandchild is due during that period, so I'm looking forward to that. And but we've still got 3 or 4 weeks left before we get to that point. So there'll be three
episodes after this one.
Yeah,
and then we're gone.
And then we're gone for a break.
Yeah, I mean we anticipate being back, but you never know, do you?
You never know. It depends if the Lord preserves us.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, good. That's that.
Right.
It's a wrap.
Good. Get out in the sunshine then.
I'm going to.
All right.
Laters. Bye.
Bye. Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandy-wellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.